Disclaimer: this episode discusses suicidal ideations and extreme content that may be triggering to some. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to another episode of 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Today, we're joined by Kent Meyer, a Navy veteran, EMT, and longtime paramedic who dedicated over 14 years to serving his community. From growing up in rural Nebraska to navigating life in the military and later transitioning into civilian EMS, Kent shares a powerful story of resilience, service, and the realities first responders face both on the job and beyond. This conversation dives deep into the unforgettable calls, the weight of trauma, his journey through PTSD, and how he turned his struggles into purpose by creating Project Hope EMS, a community that now reaches thousands of first responders worldwide. This is more than a story of sacrifice. It's a reminder that even in the darkest battles, hope and healing are possible. Let's get into it.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 8158 Podcast, Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest is we have Kent Meyer. He is former military and a former EMT. So let's give Kent a welcome to the podcast. How's it going, Kent?
Good. How are you?
Fabulous. Just another day at work.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I wanted to thank you for having me on. I took some time to listen to some of your podcasts and how it all got started. And I think it's great what you're doing. It's definitely a need for it. And I just think it's really cool what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you. We definitely appreciate it. Yeah, there was definitely a shift in my life that made me, have a desire to do this.
Yeah.
And my cousin was the shift. It was about, initially it was about him, but then we realized with all of the traumas that our first responders had gone through and everything that we've heard, we figured that this was something that he would want us to focus on.
Yeah.
Just because, that's how he was.
Yeah.
He loved his brothers and sisters in law enforcement and other first responders, and also his military veterans, his brothers in the military as well. So that's just kind of who he was. So we are taking his spirit, his likeness, and running with that.
Good.
So, all right, Kent. Let's start at the beginning. What was life like growing up in rural Nebraska?
Never really had any drama or anything. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. And my dad, he only graduated from 8th grade because he was a farmer. And back then, that wasn't uncommon. But he went on to get his electrician's degree, his pilot's license, and he's always been my hero. And they were old school as far as raising kids, back in the 80s, Gen X, a little different today. But
Yes.
I worked on farms, and I was a box boy at a grocery store, and school. I had a lot of fun in school, but I had too much fun. I didn't like school. I hated school, but I liked the social aspect of it. And I was a terrible student. I think it's because I struggled with school. They didn't have the diagnosis that they have today, ADHD and things like that. And I think that's one of the things I had back then. It was hard for me to focus, and I had a hard time learning in school. So, but we had a nice family, and all of our families in South Dakota, and so we'd come up here and visit them all the time, and very family oriented.
So you growing up had learning disabilities, as you just described. How did that? How did you overcome those learning disabilities? Because that's going to go into our next question as to what drew you to the military, going into the Navy, and your role of becoming a medic. So how did you overcome those learning disabilities?
So, well, I didn't in high school because I was young and didn't know any different. But my parents said, you're either going to go to college or join the military. And I was like, well, I'm not going to college because I hated school. So I was like, I'll join the military. And plus, I wanted to get out of Nebraska. I wanted to do things and see things. But the first thing they did when I got in the Navy was put me in school. So I realized, okay, school is a part of life, education. So I developed ways to study, and I had to study harder than most. Especially if it was things that didn't interest me. But things that did interest me, like paramedic school, it wasn't easy, but I enjoyed it and I found it fascinating, and I was really into it. But these were things that I chose as an adult to do, and not being forced to go and learn something I didn't want to learn.
So your parents basically gave you an ultimatum: college or military. You chose the Navy, and your fascination with medicine had drawn you to become an EMT.
So what happened is in the Navy, I was on submarines. My oldest brother was a submariner, and he talked me into joining submarines. You have to volunteer for it. And on the submarine, you have one corpsman, one doctor, and that's the only medical personnel on board. So during battle stations, he's up in control. So if something happened to him, we wouldn't have had any medical trained personnel on board. So I was in the aft part of the submarine, and there was this sonar tech. He was in the forward part. So they picked me and him to go to EMT school in Atsugi, Japan. And so it was only a week long. It was a condensed version. We only had to do one clinical in the ER. So we covered a lot of material in a real short time, but they focused mostly on trauma and that aspect of it. So because that's what we would have had to deal with. And then they gave us little medic bags to put in our bunks we had to sleep with. And sometimes we'd get called to respond to something. And usually it was something minor. And so I never really didn't really get a taste for it other than school. And then they asked me to become a CPR instructor on base to teach the Marines and the Navy personnel. So that kind of added to it. And I found that I like teaching, and I like teaching about medical things. So that kind of got me going.
Okay. Sounds pretty interesting. I've never been to Japan. I've always wanted to go to Japan, but it's a very, very honorable place, it seems like.
Yes, it is.
So with your military and transition from military to civilian life, how did your Navy experience prepare you for the civilian EMS work?
So unfortunately, certifications you get, like as a medic or an EMT in the military, do not transfer to the civilian life. You have to go back through school again.
Mhm.
And I think that's because, I mean, I can't speak for the Army or the Marines, but I think it's because you focus more on trauma and there's so many more aspects to it that you don't really cover very well. And, but we moved back to Pennsylvania where my ex-wife was from, and I didn't know anybody there. And, so I joined the fire hall for, just the social aspect, just to meet people. And they asked me and said, if we pay for it, will you go to EMT school? I thought, yeah, I can go again. But it was like, I can't remember, it's 2 or 3 months long instead of a week. And, but I liked it. And I found it interesting, so I enjoyed it. So I was really into it.
Okay. So you'd mentioned before that you had taught an EMT course in CPR. What did you enjoy most about teaching current and future responders?
So, well, like I kind of mentioned before, when you have adults that you're teaching, they're usually at a class that they chose to go to and that they're paying for. And so they want to be there. So right away, they make better students. And so that makes teaching, at a whole new level. And it was exciting to see them getting it and understanding it, and to see them getting excited about the profession and wanting to help people. And, but I really enjoyed teaching, and the people I'd meet, they would get their certification and you'd wind up working with them. And, it's just kind of like a brotherhood, sort of like. And
Right.
Nice.
So through time, you get attached with a lot of these trainees and kind of build a rapport and like a camaraderie sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then when they come to work with you, you got to train them again. Because, what they say, school is completely different than the clinical side of it.
Right.
So you got to train them on, well, like how to drive the ambulance and all the operations of it. And, things like that aren't covered in school.
Right.
So there's a lot more things to cover.
So you got the book part of it, and then you have the practical part of it, the actual doing. So things are different in the field than they are in the classroom.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's true with any profession.
Yeah.
And then you lose what you don't use, which isn't really in the EMS field as a paramedic, we all hated pediatric calls.
Yes.
I mean, for 2 reasons. 1, because it was horrible to see a pediatric in distress. And 2, because you didn't see it very often. And you were like really nervous because there's stuff you don't remember because they're completely different. Their vitals are different. Their dosages are different. And so you're kind of a little nervous wreck when you go to a pediatric call, and but in there you don't use it, you kind of lose it. But for the most part, we pretty much used everything we learned. So
yeah, especially dealing with pediatrics, with children and infants, their bodies are more fragile.
Oh yeah.
Than adults. So doing CPR on an infant is totally different than doing CPR on a full-grown adult.
We used to take a neonatal team for preemies. We had an incubator that we could put in the back of the ambulance. We'd take the stretcher out, and the nurses, they would ride and they would handle the babies. And these babies were no bigger than your hand. And they would just be flopping them around like no big deal. And we'd always say to them, we can never do your job. And the ironic thing was they would always say to us, we can never do yours. It's like, why? Adults can talk to you and tell you what's going on, Kids, you really got to be paying attention. But they were totally comfortable with it. And
Wow. Yeah, I guess there's a difference. I mean, they're used to it probably.
oh, yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't be, but yeah.
So when you had moved to Pennsylvania and joined the fire department for socialization, did you ever imagine it would lead to a 14-year career as a paramedic?
Never. I thought I would run calls here and there with the fire department. And the first day of class, they said, who here is going to make a career out of this? And I was kind of like, people do that, but so I was like, well, maybe I could do that, because I was a mechanic in the Navy, and I was tired of being dirty all the time. So I kind of wanted to change in jobs. So I was like, maybe I can try this out. But I was a little nervous because I didn't know if I could handle it, like the blood and gore and just seeing people hurt. And but you don't know unless you try. So I was like, well, I'll try it and we'll see how it goes. So I set out on a path went to work for an ambulance station I was doing clinicals at. And a year later, they sent me to paramedic school. And then it was on after that. I just kept going.
So what did you like most about working for that company in Pennsylvania?
Well, management was good, which is a plus in any situation. And they had really good equipment. They took care of their ambulances. They took care of us. And all the people that worked there were friendly. And, sometimes you go to work and there's just that one person you don't get along with, but everybody got along and we were all like a family. And we took care of each other and we took care of the patients. And it was rural EMS. It was Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, home of the groundhog. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
So, moving on to careers and highlights. So every paramedic has those unforgettable calls. What's one of those funniest or most heartwarming moments you remember on the job?
So I read that question and I was like, man, I can't think of any funny. But then I thought about one. We had a motor vehicle accident, and it was this lady. She wasn't that bad, but we had to board her and everything. And we had 2 ambulances on scene. So I was in the back of the other ambulance helping the medic back there. And my partner was EMT, and he was with our ambulance, but he was helping us. And the fireman opened up the back and said, she's got 2 pugs. What do you want us to do with them? I said, put them in the front seat of my truck, of the ambulance. So my partner got in and looked over at these pugs looking at him, and they opened the door. He's like, what is this? So we took them to the ER and we tied them up outside and got them food and water and stuff. But first time we ever transported dogs.
Those are babies.
Yes, they were her babies. We figured we better take care of them.
Right. So how about a wild or unusual call that still makes your head shake today?
So that's kind of a tough one. It's kind of a sad one. This kid was 17 years old. We got called for alcohol poisoning. And we got there, they were having a party. And this kid was unresponsive. His airway was full of vomit. He wasn't breathing. His heart was still beating. And we could not get an airway on him for several minutes. So he went several minutes without oxygen to his brain. And we finally got him to the ER, and they were able to get an airway finally. And they said that he was showing signs of brain damage. So at the time, my son was 17 years old. So it really hit me hard. And I was really upset about it because I thought, he's a 17-year-old kid. If anybody, can be saved, it's usually somebody younger. And I thought, here he's going to be brain dead all his life. And it was like a year later, and I seen him at Walmart walking and talking. And I was like, how is that even possible? So he turned out fine. But all the odds were against him. And so it just kind of blew me away.
So having to deal with that situation, this teenager had aspirated his vomit and not being able to get an airway in him. What was going through your mind at that moment while you're transporting this young kid to the hospital?
That he's not going to make it. And the worst feeling a medic can feel or a first responder can feel is the feeling of helplessness. And I feel a lot of us get in this business because there was a point in our life where we felt totally helpless in helping somebody, usually a loved one, and we never want to feel that way again.
Right.
Now, there's lots of people we help. We do everything we can, and everything goes okay, but they still don't make it. It's just, it's not for lack of us trying or not being able to perform our skills. And so, I felt totally helpless, and I was very frustrated. And even my boss jumped on the ambulance, and he was frustrated too. Yeah.
Well, that kid was fortunate.
Yeah. I think bigger things were at play.
Yeah.
People would always say to me, well, you save lives. I said, no. I said, God saves lives. We just prolong them.
Right. He's just using you as an instrument to help them along.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. I believe that, God uses us for many reasons. And that was your purpose. And I have my purpose. My purpose is to help first responders get their message out and get a lot of stuff out from, suffering in silence.
Well, I know he brings us through terrible things.
Yeah.
Sees us through till the end. So he can use us later. Like when, so I had depression. I had depression in high school, I think, because I was depressed. And I had it in the Navy, and I still have it today, but as long as I take my medications, I'm fine. But when we transport mental health patients, they would be so down about, I'll never have a normal life. I'll never be able to live like everybody else because I have this mental health issue. It's like, that's so untrue. And I would share, I'm on, I have depression, and I'm working, I have family, I'm living life. You can't sell yourself short like that. And so, like I said, I think he uses us to help other people say, see, he made it through. He's okay. You'll make it through too.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Uh, so, did you ever have a rookie partner moment that turned into a good story later?
Um, not not that I could really think of. Um, Other than we would get these young kids that would go to work for us. They're in their late teens, early 20s, and they sleep really hard and
Yeah.
they're hard to wake up. I would be half asleep so I could hear the pager go off. But these guys, you would have to really wake them up. And then even then, they they would have the bag and stuff, and they would walk up to a gate and just sit there and stare at. I'm like, open the gate, let's go, because they're like teenage zombies, like my kids when they were teenagers. Like, oh my gosh, you guys need to wake up.
Snap out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, looking back, what was one of those "this is why I do this" calls that stuck with you?
We had a call in the middle of the night one night. We were posted by the interstate, and there was this camper. They made campers, RVs next door across the way. And there was a cardiac arrest. They had a night shift. So we went over there, and the coworkers were doing CPR, and the guy was blue as could be. And so I put the monitor on him, and he was in a shockable rhythm. So I shocked him once, and then I was going to start an IV, and I happened to look up the monitor, and he was back into a shockable rhythm again. So I shocked him again, and then his heart started beating slowly, and then slowly started speeding up to a normal rate. And so I got the IV and called for a helicopter because it was very rural. So we had to fly him to Pittsburgh. So by the time we always put cardiac patients on a backboard, and then we would put head blocks on there to stabilize their head. So if they were intubated, you won't lose the tube, and you won't lose the IVs and stuff like that. So we were getting him on the board, and he woke up and he sat up, and we're like, you need to lay back down. And he's like, I'm all right. I was like, no, you're not. So we got him to the hospital shortly after that, and the helicopter was waiting on the pad, and they were running hot so they could load and go, and away he went. Well, it was, I don't know, like a month later. He survived, right? He lived, and he went and got treated for heart attack. So we decided, let's give his coworkers an award for early CPR, early recognition, life-saving award. So we showed up there. The newspaper was there. They took pictures and stuff, and afterwards they had cookies and stuff. And this lady came up to me, and she said, that was my husband. And then she said, thank you for giving him back to me.
Oh.
So, yeah, because you don't get a lot of saves. I mean, we do, like, we'll get cardiac arrest and we'll get them back, but they go to ICU for 3 or 4 days and they pass away.
Yeah.
And I used to struggle with that because I thought, well, what about passing away with dignity? And as Chaplain mentioned to me, he goes, well, can't you give them the family time to say goodbye?
Right.
And when he told me that, I felt better about it. But seldomly do you get a save like that. And it's because it was early recognition, early CPR. We were right across the street, early defibrillation. All the statistics were there for him to have a good outcome. So,
Yeah, somebody was definitely looking after him.
yeah.
Definitely. So I'd like to move on now to a critical incident that you had, if you feel comfortable talking about it. You had shared that you had a critical incident in Texas involving a burn patient. Would you care to tell us a little bit about that experience, or what it taught you about the emotional weight of this job?
Yeah. So this is my worst trigger call. As far as like watching TV, if all of a sudden somebody's burning, it will give me a trigger and I'll have a flashback. But, and I may get emotional, but I feel it's important to share because others can relate and they need to hear it so they know that, okay, I'm not the only one struggling with this. So we got a call for a house fire. It was a trailer house. And usually for house fires, we just go and stage and give water bottles to the firefighters. And it's usually no big deal. But we were almost there, and the fire chief got on and told us we needed to expedite. So we pulled up, and I can remember everything. I can remember the smoke burning my lungs. I can remember how hot it was that day, what the weather was like. They had her across the street in a neighbor's yard, and she was burned from head to toe. The only place that wasn't burned was a little spot on her head, top of her head. And what happened is somehow a gas can caught on fire under the front porch. And the husband woke up, and she was taking a nap, and he was taking a nap in the living room. He ran out the back door. She got up, and in her confusion, she ran out the front door and got flash burned. Ooh. And so she's laying there, and she's begging me to help her and saying it hurts so bad. And I have never had, you have patients that they're not breathing and they don't have a pulse, but you still have hope. We're going to push drugs. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we're going to do everything we can. There's still hope. But with burns, there's, a mathematical equation. It's just, within certain areas or the whole body, it's just not life. It's not conducive with life.
Right.
So it's the first time I ever had a patient that was able to talk to me that I knew was going to die, without a doubt. And right away, I was struggling with that. And so got her in the back of the ambulance, and you shut the air conditioning off because it has to be warm in there with the burns. And she was in so much pain, and told her, we're going to give you drugs, and we're going to take away your breathing, but we're going to breathe for you. And then we're going to give you some drugs for the pain. What I didn't tell her was she was never going to wake up again. What I didn't do is let her husband, who was standing outside the door, come in and say goodbye to her.
Yeah.
So we transported her to the hospital. Helicopter took her went to Dallas to the burn center, and she passed away shortly after getting there. And I went to the back of the ambulance to clean up and start restocking and stuff. And the bottoms of her feet were laying on the floor, and I just lost it. And just because she was sloughing her skin off and stuff. And so I really struggled with it, but I didn't know how much I was struggling with it. And I even went to my coworkers to see if they were struggling with it. And they said they weren't. And so I thought, okay, then I should be fine. I should be okay. Because you have this mentality, I'm a rescuer. I should be able to, I see things, I should be able to handle things. And I certainly should be able to handle myself. But we're only human. And that is so untrue. Certain things affect people differently, and the outcome's different for everyone. But and I learned we weren't taught coping skills in school. We had 3 slides on self-care. They said you need to eat right, you need to get plenty of sleep, and you need to take vacations. Well, paramedics do none of those things. We never eat right, we never get enough sleep, and we rarely go on vacation. So that was the only advice. Oh, and you may have to talk to somebody if you find yourself having issues with some. And that's it. That's all it was said. First time I heard the word resiliency, I had to look it up. Same thing with stigma. I was like, what is stigma? And
right.
I would do a call, and I would look at the patient like a job. I'd say, okay, this is broken. We need to splint that. We need to start an IV. We need to give this medication. We need to do this. I was still empathetic, but I wouldn't personalize it. And then when the call was over, I'd put it in the back of my head and say, okay, that's over. We're moving on. So, sometimes you would run one bad call right after the other. There's no time to process that. And so you can only put so much of the back of your head before it finds its way out. And that's what happened to me.
And I can't imagine. I mean, what was going through your mind when you saw the bottoms of her feet in your ambulance?
It made it real. Because at the time, I wasn't thinking about not telling her she wasn't going to wake up. That was like an afterthought. I was just thinking, she's not going to make it. And then when I seen the bottoms of her feet, I was like thinking, it just like hit me. This is real. She's going to die. Her feet are right here, bottoms of her feet. Because I never cried before on a scene or anything like that. So that made me feel uncomfortable because I didn't want anybody to see me because I didn't want anybody to think that I was weak or not able to handle things or, which is a stigma. And, but it was, so I started having nightmares about her. And one night I was at work at a remote station and it was the middle of the night and I had a horrible dream about her. And I woke up and I called my boss at home in the middle of the night and said, I can't do this anymore. And he said, well, did you guys have a bad call? I said, no, it's that lady that was in that fire. I keep having nightmares about her. And he said, that was 2 years ago. But to me, it was like last week.
Right.
It blew me away when he said it was 2 years ago because it didn't seem possible.
Seemed like yesterday.
Yeah. So I continued to work and suffer in silence like so many of us do. And, my dad died from brain cancer when I was in the Navy. And I went back for the last 30 days he was alive. And my mom had used up all of her vacations, so she was at work, and she was paying a nurse to come in, which she couldn't afford. So I told her, I'll take care of him. And at the time, I was a mechanic in the Navy and I knew very little about medical. And so this is my hero, right?
Yeah.
Big, strong man, always been a strong figure in my life. And now he's like, just eating away, and I had to toilet him and do cares. And it was very humbling for both of us. But I'm glad that I was there and was able to do it. So I share that because back to where we were, I was continuing to struggle. I wouldn't sleep because of the nightmares. I was having flashbacks. I started having audible and visual hallucinations from being sleep deprived. And then all of a sudden my mom got sick. So I went to go check on her, see her in Nebraska, and turned out she had cancer, ovarian cancer. And then she went to hospice, and I was still working. And then I wasn't going to go back to see her in hospice because I seen Dad like that, and all my siblings were like, "We understand you don't have to come back to see her." I was going to go back for the funeral, but not to see her like that.
Yeah.
But she was asking for me because all of us kids were there but me. So I went, and she passed away the next day. It's like she was waiting for all of us to be together.
Right.
So I went back to work, and man, it was like a volcano erupted. I started remembering calls that I had completely forgotten about. My nightmares were worse. Having flashbacks. I got to the point, and I didn't share this with you, but I will now, and I have with lots of people, but I tried to commit suicide. I just got to the point where I didn't want to die. I was just so tired of fighting, and I didn't want to fight. And so my boss found me, and they got me to the hospital and took care of me. And then I stayed there for a while in the mental health hospital, and they diagnosed me with PTSD. Because at the time, when I was at home and I was suffering in silence, I didn't know who to talk to. I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't talk to my siblings because they would worry, and they probably wouldn't understand. I couldn't talk to my coworkers because I didn't want them to think that I was weak or, that whatever along those lines. And I went online and I typed things in, and the only thing that came back was PTSD for veterans. And I didn't want to call the suicide hotline because they would have put me in the hospital, which is so ironic. So I went back to work after I got out of the hospital, and I had this diagnosis, and my boss was understanding and everything. And they said, well, let's just take it easy. But so everybody knew I had PTSD because there's no secrets in the ambulance station. I had older medics who had been career medics, been there a while, 2 of them at least, came up to me separately, privately, and started telling me their story and just broke down crying. And it was then I realized that, because I thought I was the only one going through it. That's how I felt. I felt all alone, and I felt like I was the only one going through it. But it made me realize that how many of us are suffering in silence and hiding it. And so it made me realize that there's probably a lot of us out there that need help. So I quit my job because I knew I couldn't take care of patients anymore. I needed to take care of myself. and I moved to South Dakota, and I lived with my brother for a while. And I went to the VA because I'm a veteran, and I told him I had PTSD. And the psychiatrist said, well, we could treat you for combat PTSD. And I was like, well, that's not what I have. So they had a book that they would use to go through for treatment. She went through, tore out pages, wrote in paragraphs, crossed out things. She customized the book to treat me for my PTSD with EMS. Wow. And we started 6 months of intensive therapy. And it was a long road, but it changed my life.
So with the 6 month intensive therapy, what was that process like, and how did it change your life for the better?
So I was at the lowest that I ever possibly imagined I would be. I just had no self-esteem, just totally miserable. And she wanted me to go to therapy, and I was afraid to, because I knew I was going to have to deal with the things that were haunting me, the things I've been running from and trying to hide from. And now I was going to have to face them head on and relive memories and situations. And that's what we did. I would write stories of events in detail with all my senses. And doing that is so emotional because you're reliving it. And then she would go through it, and they look at what they call catchphrases or distorted thought. Mm-hmm. And basically they're not true or not entirely true, but to us they are. And she helped me see that and turn around to where into a realistic thought, and make me, because you blame yourself for these calls, even though it's not your fault. I don't know why we do that. Right. But
we will return after this quick ad break.
The William H. Bill Butler Jr. Foundation is on a mission to honor first responders and support those who serve. We provide scholarships for families who have lost a hero in the line of duty, offer second chances to juvenile offenders who are working to rebuild their future, and help new recruits pursuing careers as first responders. Through generous donations and the sale of merchandise, we're building a community that uplifts, empowers, and creates lasting impact. You can be a part of this mission as well. Visit 8158podcast.com to donate or shop today. Together, we can support those who serve, honor those we've lost, and give hope to those who need it most. Behind every badge is a story, and behind every story is a sacrifice. This is the 8158 podcast, where we honor the lives and legacies of first responders and their families. If our mission speaks to your heart, if these stories move you like they move us, join us on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you'll get ad-free listening, exclusive merchandise, behind-the-scenes content, and video episodes only available to our patrons. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you can be a part of it. Support us at patreon.com/8158podcast. Let's continue to share the stories that deserve to be heard.
You're continuing to do therapy today?
Yeah, so I'd see a psychiatrist today. I take medications for nightmares, for anxiety, for depression. And I've tried quitting taking my medications. in the beginning, I was really hung up on, I don't want to have to take all these medications all my life. And I would get sick. I'd get really depressed. I'd get worse. And I knew better because most of the mental health calls that we would do in the ambulance is because somebody quit taking their medications because they were feeling better and didn't think they needed them anymore. And they would spiral. So I come to the decision that, look, you're going to have to do this the rest of your life. Maybe not, but for now you do. And I hate the word normal because people, like when we have PTSD, we say, I'm not normal. That's not true. I hate the word normal because what is normal?
Right.
What's normal to one person is not normal to another. So I come up with the new normal. This is the new normal. This is me on medication and seeing a psychiatrist and living my life and working and having grandkids. This is the new normal. That's not bad. And I also encourage first responders who have PTSD. This worked for me. I embraced it because before I would be so scared of it. When's my next flashback going to happen? When am I going to have anxiety? You can't borrow worry from tomorrow. It's going to happen if it happens. But because I identified as PTSD, which so many of us do, PTSD is a part of us. It's not who we are. Just like if you're a diabetic, you're not diabetic. It's part of you, but you are who you are. You can't let it define you. You have to, and so by grasping that concept that it's not controlling me, I'll still have flashbacks. But when I grasped that concept, my flashbacks were fewer and not as severe. I had less nightmares. I still have them, but I feel like I'm in control and PTSD isn't in control because I talk to myself, I have a flashback. I tell myself I lived through the event. I'm going to live through the memory. And I just talk myself through it. But yeah, so I challenge you to accept that it's just a part of you. It's not who you are.
Right. Yeah. Post-traumatic stress is something that had happened. Your brain's way of reacting to that situation, that traumatic situation.
Yeah. And so I work in mental health now, and I get so many patients say, well, I'm crazy. And it's like, so you're not crazy. Nobody's crazy. It's no different than having a broken arm. Your brain is part of you and it breaks too. It has problems and we treat it with medications and therapy, just like we would treat a break with a cast and medication. It's no different. And that falls in with the stigma, it's like, especially the crowd I work with, they're old school. So they're really, the stigma is very much alive with them. And so I deal with that a lot and, talking to them about it's no worse than anything else. It's just part of what we go through in life.
So your ongoing support, how did that shape your recovery?
It keeps me in check. You got to have therapy and medications go hand in hand. You really can't do one without the other because you'll quit one or quit the other. They go hand in hand. They keep you in check and they keep you accountable. And And then if you do start to have problems, you got somebody there. You call them up and say, hey, I'm struggling. Because I still struggle with depression now and then. They get down mostly during the wintertime, but it's nice to be able to call and say, look, I got a lot going on. I'm really struggling. I don't know if we need to change something or do something or just talk, but can we do that? And because if you don't have that set up, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Right. Yeah, you definitely have to have a support system,
Yes.
especially when you're dealing with any kind of mental health issues or any kind of post-traumatic stress. You got to have somebody to turn to.
Somebody to talk to that's non-biased, non-judgmental, and family's not always the best support group when it comes to things like that. And sometimes they are, but I think it scares them sometimes. They don't know what to say. They're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing, but that's not true. So,
right. So let's move on here and talk about Project Hope EMS. Tell us about how Project Hope EMS started. Was there a specific moment you knew this community was needed? Why
there's
needed?
a couple moments. Like the first one was when those older medics came and talked to me, and I realized that there are more people that we know that are suffering in silence. Another moment was when I went online to find help, and there was none. And it was becoming obvious that it's just overlooked. And but so I always said I want to do something to help first responders with PTSD, but I don't know what it is. And I don't want to do it until I'm better, because that's the other trap people jump into, is they try to help people before they're better because it makes them feel good, but that only lasts so long, and then it blows up in your face. So once I went through intensive therapy and got set up on follow-ups and medications, I went ahead, and I had no idea what I was doing. I started a page called Project Hope EMS, or PTSD and paramedics, EMTs, and first responders. And it took off, but the page isn't very personalized. And I wanted something where, you can talk to people and we can talk back and forth. So I started a group called Project Hope EMS. And I was in college at the time. And I would check my phone, and there'd be 30 to 60 new member requests a day, which is unheard of. But at the time, it was only Code Green and me starting out. So we just grew expeditionally. And it just proved that there's a need for this. These people are hungry for help. And that's when I really realized that there's really a need for this, and started. And it was a huge learning curve on how to get things set up, what to do, because I didn't know. And, so I got a staff of volunteers from all different, fire, police, EMS, dispatchers. I had a chaplain who was a firefighter. I had a coroner at one time. I had a therapist who was actually used to be EMS with PTSD, or she had PTSD. And so because first responders feel more comfortable talking to other first responders who have PTSD or had it and are working through it, because they can relate and they know they understand. Now, we weren't therapists. We never said we were, or anything like that. We were there for peer support, and we provided a lot of tools, like how to talk to family about PTSD. I had, because we had a lot of family members who wanted to join because their loved one had PTSD and they were lost. They didn't know what to do. So we started a group called, I remember what it was called. It was PTSD for family members. And then I had one staff member and his wife took that over, and they just worked with teaching them what PTSD is, what to do, what not to do, things of that nature. And so we did a lot of interventions. We would say, the site would say or says that we're not therapists. We're not a suicide hotline number. If you are suicidal, please call, and we'd have the suicide hotline number down. Now it's 988. But first responders don't want to call. A lot of them don't want to call the suicide hotline number. They would rather talk to another first responder. So we would figure out two people would talk to them while the rest of us would find out where they're at, through the white pages, through Facebook, through questions that we would ask that would lead us to where they're at. And then we'd wind up calling the police to do an intervention, and they'd wind up going to the mental health hospital. And we did hundreds of those. And then we also have done things where help people get to therapy, like they don't have a ride, pay for a ride for them to go to therapy. Or also, I still do with the coordinate with other resources. And there's one lady, she has a group called Help 911, and she has a spreadsheet of all these resources. So if somebody calls me from, Nebraska, and they're looking for resources for help because their house burned down, and she's got it. So, me and her collaborate a lot. And so, yeah, there really the only thing is we're not therapists. There's really no limit to what we can do. I look at us as a stepping stone, right, from people who are just finding out or who know they have PTSD or are not sure if they have PTSD, but they have all the symptoms. So we get them to the help that they need. And like I said, we have a lot of tools on different things, what to look for in a psychiatrist, the symptoms of PTSD, how to talk to your spouse about your PTSD, just different things like that.
So with Project Hope, you have over 35,000 followers in 52 countries. What kind of support and connection are people finding there?
Yeah, it's crazy. I advertised only for the United States, and somehow it went to different countries. And so we're all over. But the biggest support that we offer is peer support, because they also talk to each other. And I'm kind of strict about things I don't allow. Like, I don't allow the talking about pharmaceuticals or illicit drugs. Right. Because that's something that should be between you and your doctor. Right. And not taking advice from somebody who's getting treated. That's not the place for it. I generally try to run a podcast on my group, have different people. I do live interviews, anything that is going to benefit the group. we allow that in, but we're real careful about screening what isn't good or what can be harmful or triggers, things of that nature.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then we would do buddy checks every week, which they still do, where we just check on everybody, and that kind of creates a camaraderie, and also it singles out the people who need more help.
Right.
Yeah.
What's one of the stories from your group that reminded you that this is why I do this? If you can share it, a broad story.
It got to the point where other groups would contact us because they would have a suicidal member in their group, and they had no idea how to, we try to say, you need to call this number, you need to call, but otherwise they didn't know what to say or do. So they would have us come in and take care of it. One had a lady who would sell us merchandise, and she had a guy who wasn't a first responder from New York who was messaging her saying he was suicidal. And so she got his phone number, and I was able to call him, and we got him to the hospital through police intervention. But like we've done so many times before, and every time we do it, they would be so angry with us because we'd wind up tricking them a little bit to find out where they're at. But that's okay. But what really make up for it is later, after they got out of the hospital, we get so many messages thanking us for saving their life.
Yeah.
And that's why we do it. That's not what we want to do, but it makes it all worthwhile.
So you're not trying to meddle into people's lives. You're trying to help them to realize that they could be potentially be making the biggest mistake in their life.
Yeah.
By following through with that decision.
Yeah. So, like I would always tell them, like they would most times be like, well, no matter what you say, I'm going through with it. And I would usually say, well, give me 30 minutes. Let's talk for 30 minutes. And then, you can do what you want to do. What's 30 minutes? What's that matter? 30 more minutes. And usually we'd make everything happen in that time frame. And or sometimes they would feel better. And we'd always follow up with people on a regular basis, a list of people that we have that we follow up with, just to check on them and see how they're doing, if they need anything. And yeah.
It's pretty awesome. It's definitely needed, and I imagine it's definitely appreciated.
Yeah, it is. Just like me, with my VA therapist that saved my life, I wish I could find her and thank her, but I have no idea where she's at because she's moved on. And yeah, because when you need a thank you every now and then because we're only human. Right. And to let us know that we're doing the right thing, we're on the right track. And because it can take a toll on you.
Right. Definitely. I know that.
Yeah.
So moving on to your life now, what's your favorite part of working as a behavioral health provider with dementia patients?
I'd say my favorite part is working with the patients, period. Getting to know them, getting to know who they were, getting to know what they like, what they don't like. So I make their stay as comfortable as possible and as enjoyable as possible. A lot of people don't realize dementia is a terminally ill disease. And we have had several people pass away in our facility because we couldn't get them into hospice because they didn't have any beds. And we've had families say they want to keep them there because we do better than hospice, which makes us feel good, but that's not what we're really designed to do. But so, like, a whole lot of it is the favorite part. Educating the families and just being supportive and being there for them. And because a lot of times families go to a doctor with their loved one with dementia, they get a diagnosis and some pills, and that's it. They get no education. They don't know what's going on. They're scared. They need help too. And that is such a hard, like I do it for 8 hours a day and I'm done. But some of these people, these family members, do it 24/7. And it's not like they sleep. They're up during the night and getting into things and trying to get out. And that's exhausting. And then they feel guilty when they can't do it anymore. And it's like, it's not your fault. It's the disease. It's the way it is. And you shouldn't feel that way. And, we'll take care of them. We'll take care of them just like they're our family. And so there's a lot of good favorite parts to my job.
Imagine, my aunt has dementia, and she's getting worse every day, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough when she doesn't remember who you are, and then she does, and then she doesn't, and then it's hard.
Yeah, it's harder for my girlfriend. Both her parents had dementia, and we talk a lot about, and she, like for me, they don't remember me that day. It's like, okay, they're having a bad day. But she told me the other day, she said, well, it's not that way for family. She said, it's very painful and it hurts. I said, I can see that. I can, but I mean, it's part of our job is to, we expect it. But then they have lucid moments, and I really take advantage of those moments to get to know them. And I use a lot of humor. Some of them I pick on, and they pick on me right back. And, it's we have a lot of fun. But
Right. That's good that they have somebody like you there to kind of lift their spirits a little bit when it's definitely needed.
Yeah, we'd try.
So you were promoted to a supervisor, and how has that changed your day-to-day to work?
Well, I always thought I wanted to be a supervisor, but I like everybody to like me. I don't like it when people are upset with me. I don't like confrontation, and I've had to start counseling people when they're late for work or this or that, and I hate that. And I wear a lot of hats. I'm on different committees, and I teach different classes, and I've had to write programs for training for the hospital and for our unit. And so I do some office hours, but I'm mostly on the floor, which I enjoy more. But so I'm pretty busy, and I put in more hours because there's just not enough time to do everything. When you're on the floor, you can't. You're on the floor. You're because it's somebody's doing something or getting into something, or you're constantly running around and stuff. Yeah. So there's no time to work on office things during that time. And so it was a transition for me because I had never really been in this position before. And I think I'm finally getting my niche where a happy medium. I'm kind of the liaison between my boss and then all the techs. And so, yeah, keeps me busy.
So you're on the floor dealing with all these people. What does that look like from day to day? Does it change, or does it like pretty much the same thing every day?
It changes every day. Like Sunday I worked and I was like, oh my gosh, it's only 7:30 in the morning. We're all fired up all over the place. And it just depends on, if one person gets escalated, they all get escalated. So you got to kind of intervene and, redirect and distract, and you got to stay on top of it. And I kind of laugh because they're kind of like kids in a lot of ways. They're cute. They're really cute, but yeah. And then some days are really good, where they're all doing good and they're more lucid. But there's a thing called sundowners. Have you heard of it?
No.
I never heard of it till I started working there, and then I didn't believe them when they told me. When the sun goes down, they get more escalated and worse. And well, it's not sundown; it's 3:00 in the afternoon is when it happens. And there's a movie about it, but it's a thing. They call it sundowners, but there's no science behind it. There's a theory. When they wake up in the morning, their brain is rested and is working at its best. But by mid-afternoon, 3-4 o'clock, the brain is tired and it quits working like it was. And then they get frustrated. And I'm kind of fortunate because I work till 3. So I don't see a lot of the sundowning, but and it blows me away when they tell me, one of them sundowns really bad, because I'm like, but he's such a sweet guy. He's always nice and laughing and joking, and they're like, well, he isn't at 4 o'clock, and so, and that's just part of it. It's the disease. It's not them, and you really gotta. They can get violent. They can swear at you and stuff, and you just can't take it personal because it's not them. It's a disease. And if you talk to the family, you'll find out that that is not them. Like, they never swore a day in their life, or they were never a violent person. And so, you just got to love them through it and work with it.
So when you retire, you should you're going to retire in 6 years, something like that?
Yeah, I want to retire when I'm 62.
What's your vision for Project Hope and EMS?
Well, I want to pass it on. So the best way would be to be through nonprofit. And sundowning. It's nonprofit because it's controlled by a board, and I would like to see it keep going.
Right.
It's kind of and I mentioned to you that I've enjoyed doing the live interviews. And I thought about a podcast, but I didn't know you couldn't do podcast and video at the same time, because I always thought podcasts were just audio. And
right.
I always enjoyed the video because you get to see the emotion and
right.
Everything else. And I haven't been able to do it since my promotion. So I want to get back into that, because you got to have hobbies when you're retired, or
you got to do something.
Yeah, you got to do something. So I would love to do that for Project Hope, and then maybe even privately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be looking out for that.
Okay. I'll let you know.
Well, if you need any help, any pointers or anything like that, I know we're not gurus at this because we just started the first of the year, but we're on our second season.
Yeah.
And,
I'm totally lost when it comes to yeah. So
yeah, we've got over 50 something episodes out already.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we're going strong. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I never imagined it would come this far.
Yeah, you just never know. Things really, and like there's a need for it. It's gonna, it can't help but not do good.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's definitely a need for it. I mean, what you're doing in your nonprofit organization, there's definitely a need for that. And hopefully, with this podcast, more of the word will get out for you guys to get more people to come to you.
Yeah.
That's what we'd like to see.
And that would be nice. But there are a lot of groups out there now, which blows me away. Because when I first started, it was just me and Code Green, and now there's all sorts of groups, which is great. Because different people are attracted to different things, and so
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they are. But we're always interested in getting connected with people, especially with like our listeners. If they have any questions or if they want to find out where they can get help, then we can point them in the right direction.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives us a better idea of where to send people. It's community support or whatever, a support group, or if they need therapy, or if there's a nonprofit that can help them get into therapy.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to help people and guide them in that direction.
Yeah, resources are great.
Right. Absolutely. The more resources that we come across, the more that we'll have to divvy out to people. So you've been through so much. What advice would you give to a first responder who is quietly struggling with PTSD?
So it's a quote that has been around a while, but it's not weak to speak. It's a sign of strength. Mm-hmm. And I found by coming forward, which was against my will, but I did, and by starting the group, that it gives other people the courage to come forward and get help. Because like I hear so often in the group that I thought I was the only one. I felt like I was all alone. And we're not. There's so many of us out there, we're all together. And so by coming forward and getting help and sharing your story, you will give others the courage to come forward and get the help that they need.
Right.
And that's basically the advice I'd give.
Right. So when somebody came to you, like when you were talking about the older generation of medics that had confided in you, and when you had realized that you were not the only one, was there some sort of sigh of relief for you inside, knowing that you weren't doing this alone?
Yeah, because these guys were like, older, well-respected, looked up to, and I'd seen they're struggling. Who else is struggling? And here, I'm not the only one. But back then there was, and I think we talked about this, it's shifting, but the stigma of losing your job or, some things are more important. You could always get another job, but you only got one life.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems like far too often, when people, especially like first responders, they lose their job, they kind of lose their purpose. I know a lot of
Yeah.
veterans that have been in combat that they come home and they get into law enforcement because they feel like that is their purpose to be, a part of that. And if they
Mhm.
don't become a part of that, they lose their purpose in life.
Yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend about that today. That it says not so much that you think you can't find anything else, or because EMS is the only thing I know. That it's who you are. Like you said, sense of purpose. It's what you do. It's who you are. It's not like working at the railroad and you go home and you're done with it. You're constantly in EMS mode, and
Yeah.
and that's true with any of the first responders. It's our identity.
Yeah.
And you take that away and it's like, now what? But it's not our identity. It shouldn't be that way.
Right.
It's a job. It's a job. And yeah, so and they should teach that in school. I know a lot of classes now teach resiliency and about the stigma, and which is awesome because it's needed. You got to be armed before you go out there, so you know what to expect and what to look out for. And I feel like from the time I started doing this back in 2017, there has been a big shift where things are changing and getting better. So I'm very hopeful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things are changing, and hopefully they're changing for the better. I know we're trying to do our best to affect change ourselves just by doing this podcast and trying to have people on here and speak out and have their words spoken so that they don't have to suffer in silence or feel like they're alone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's our part. I mean, we're doing what we can.
Yeah. And it all adds up, there's so many of us doing our part now. And I think that's why there's such a shift.
Yeah.
Because you get enough people saying it's okay to not be okay, then people are okay.
Right. It's okay not to be okay. It's also okay to ask for help.
Yes. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's the start of, healing, is asking for help. When you realize you're not okay, ask for help.
Right.
Not to suffer in silence and to sit there and kind of hold that in.
Yeah, because that's not going to go anywhere or go good.
No. Holding it in, it doesn't do anything. I know that from personal experience. It doesn't be any good.
Yeah, that's what got me. So
yeah, it took a long time for me to ask for help, but I had to wait till it hit its boiling point to do that.
Yeah, it's too bad that we have to hit so low to realize, okay, I need help. And sometimes you get it whether you want it or not, which isn't a bad thing either. So
yeah. Absolutely. So that's pretty much all I have for you today, Kent. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we get off of here?
Yeah, just one thing. So I want to send you and your wife, we got Project Hope badge.
Okay.
and Project Hope challenge coin. Send that to you guys. So
Okay.
if you email your address, I'll send these off to you. You can put that in your office decor.
Yeah. That would be awesome. We definitely would love that.
Sure.
That would be pretty awesome. And we definitely would look forward to talking with you again to see where you're at. If there's anything you need, you can contact us.
Okay.
If you want to do a podcast, if you want to do a collaboration and do a podcast together, we could do that every once in a while.
Okay.
If that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Get the word out, work together.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me
ready.
on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was definitely a pleasure, and it was an honor to have you on here. I'm glad you decided to make that choice to come on with us and to kind of tell your story. It helps a lot of people. It really does. We hear that a lot.
Yeah, that's good that you're getting feedback like that. I mean, you got to have feedback so you know where you stand. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hear that a lot. We hear, it helps them, and that some of them say it saves lives.
Yeah, it does. And
I don't actually see that myself. That's just basically the feedback we're getting. So,
you know, you just don't, it's like a play. You got so many things going on backstage. You don't know the lives you're touching and changing. You never will know how many people that you are affecting, but it's way more than you think.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the effect change. We are affecting change, and that's part of it. So you keep doing what you're doing. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, and we're going to help people as much as we can.
All right. Thanks, Rico. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I'll have Rianne send you the address, and then she'll let you know when this will air. So she'll
get
that out to you. She does all that communication stuff.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Have a good night. It was an honor. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. That was Kent. Kent is former military. He was in the Navy. Also, he was an EMT, worked in EMS, and he was also a paramedic in Pennsylvania. Hopefully, you got something out of his story. And if anybody is out there struggling, I would encourage you to look up Project Hope EMS. It's for all first responders. It's a support group, a good support network. So get a hold of Kent at Project Hope. We can get the number and maybe get his permission to post that on our feeds as far as TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. However, we don't have that information right now, but you could probably find them online. Google Project Hope EMS. Okay, everybody, we appreciate you coming on, listening to the story. Keep coming back. We have more people coming on. I have more scheduled interviews coming. So just keep stopping in and keep listening to the stories. And if you guys need help, reach out, call somebody, find somebody to talk to. Don't give up. Don't give in. Reach out. 8158. Have a good night. Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.